wala na nga ba tayong magagawa if meron tayong genetic disease, yung mga sakit na kinoconsider as hereditary, inborn, na mamana. Marami sa atin na nagsasabi na mga sakit ngayon is highly related to genes na wala na tayong magagawa dito. That's why marami rin ang parang hindi na rin nag-e-effort na baguhin yung kanilang lifestyle. Tinatanggap na lang nila na kesyo ito ay familial, na namana nila from their parents, ay tatanggapin na lang. But in all honesty, genetics is already there, pero it is also highly influenced by other factors. Hindi lang po genetics yung kailangan nating isipin because there's also such a thing as we call as epigenetics. So ano ang pagkakaiba ng genetics sa epigenetics? So yung genetics, ito yung relating to genes and hereditary or heredity. So sa ating DNA, in every cell sa ating katawan, meron tayong about 3 trillions of cells in our body. Hindi lang billions but in trillions. Ganon karami yung cell sa ating katawan. And each cell na may nucleus, meron diyang nakalagay na DNA. So yung DNA, kung iisipin natin, DNA is the whole cookbook, okay? Para siyang recipe book. And individually, meron individual recipes for specific menus. At yung individual recipes na yon, yun yung genes. So actually, yung genes na yan, it's just a combination of letters. And although it is there, hindi ibig sabihin lahat ng nasa genes natin ay ma-express or mailalabas. Our body is so intelligent. It is divine. It is God-given na meron siya actually recipes for genetics na makakapaggawa ng isang tao, ng kamay, ng nails, ng heart, ng all organs. And meron ding part ng genes na in charge of repair. So actually, kung paano pagalingin yung katawan natin, how to address the specific illness, the specific defect within the gene mismo, marami yung check and balance na capacity yung ating DNA. Nandyan lang yan. However, it is not always active. Hindi siya parating effective. Why? Because genes may have all the recipes, pero what will be expressed, kung ano yung lalabas, is still influenced by external factors. And that is where epigenetics come in. So ano yung epigenetics? It is relating to or arising from non-genetic influences on gene expression. So for the longest time, we usually believe na yung ating genes, wala na tayong magagawa. It's like parang curse na siya. Kung nabigyan ka ng genes na hindi maganda, all you need to do is just accept it. Even if we heard for so long na it's nature versus nurture. So nature, mostly it will refer to what is given to us at birth. So pwede siyang mag-refer to genetics. But the nurture, kung paano tayo pinalaki, kung paano tayo namuhay, and it has a lot to do with genetic expression. So hindi lang siya one-way process na when you come out of this world, kung ano yung genes mo, yun na yung gagamitin mo all throughout your life. It's actually a two-way process wherein kung meron kang ginagawa from external factors, this can also influence your genetics. That is why epigenetics is as important, equally important when it comes to manipulation, because genes, hindi natin yan mababago. It's already there. But what we can do is to influence our genes kung ano yung ilalabas. What are the examples of genetic diseases? So genetic diseases, marami yan. Yung pinaka-common nakita natin, yung mga trisomy 21 like Down syndrome at marami pang ibang syndrome. So marami yan. And there are also other genetic na component in common diseases. Say for example, diabetes, hypertension, cancer, asthma. In medicine, we were trained na whenever we do our history taking, yung una naming tinatanong when it comes to family history, meron bang family history of cancer, heart attack, heart diseases, diabetes, hypertension, and asthma or allergies, because mostly those factors are somewhat seen as familial, na nangyayari ito in families, not isolated. Usually, one woman with breast cancer will have higher risk of also having children na pwede meron ding breast cancer. But nakikita natin, it's not 100% assurance. It's not 100% na curse na kapag merong cancer yung parents mo, ay automatic magkakaroon ka na rin ng cancer. This is where epigenetics come in. Paano nga ba nag-influence yung epigenetics sa ating genes? This is because kapag, for example, kumakain tayo ng mga pagkain na inflammatory, or say for example, na-expose tayo sa radiation. So these free radicals na nakaka-damage ng ating cells, pwede siyang pumasok sa loob ng ating DNA. At kapag nakapasok siya sa ating DNA, pwede niyang scramble yung recipe na yon. So say for example, you are about to cook, for example, menudo, example lang yan ha, nag-scramble na yung mga letters at hindi na ito maintindihan. So what will come out is actually hindi na talaga menudo, maybe parang sunog or whatever, kasi nga na yung recipe na yon ay na-scramble na yung mga list of letters. And that is also what happens in our body. Yung ating DNA, yung ating genes, are recipe in making proteins. So proteins is the byproduct of our genes. So proteins will be everything that we need. Kahit yung mga enzymes natin sa ating katawan, the component ng ating cells, yung ginagamit, kahit yung ating hemoglobin, okay, yung ating red blood cells, the globin part there is also made by our cells. So, importante yon. That's why if we are not taking care of our body, how we eat it, how we behave, how we do our physical activities, pwedeng-pwede itong mag-lead into free radical formation and inflammation. Ito yung parati nating sinasabi. Parati nagtatanong, ano nga ba talaga yung inflammation? Ano nga ba talaga itong yung pamamaga na ito? So these inflammation are micro-inflammations. Hindi lang ito yung mga inflammation na nakikita natin na sumasakit yung tuhod, yung joints, o yung namumula. This can be microscopic na nakikita sa loob-loob lamang, and it is usually related to inflammation in the cellular level, sa cells na level, and the formation of free radicals. Ito yung mga oxidants na gustong-gusto nating mawala, like antioxidants. So this one will highly influence the genetic expression ng ating katawan. So what's important right now is good news, kahit pa meron tayong genetic disease, kahit pa meron tayong genetic illness, but how they will come out and kung paano ito pwedeng ma-limit yung kanilang expression. For others, say for example, Down syndrome, like my brother. Meron kaming kapatid, si Papi, na merong Down syndrome. He is already 34, going 35 years old. And for the longest time, sakitan din si Papi. Marami siyang mga congenital na malformations na kailangan ng surgical operation. So sa aming lahat, i-combine lahat ng hospitalization namin sa aming family and surgical procedures that we've went through. Kay Bapi, kulang pa yan. Which, meron siyang maraming back and forth hospitalizations for major operations, na open heart surgery na siya, na open abdominal surgery na siya, at marami pang iba. And for the longest time, he was very, very sick. However, when we change our lifestyle, his condition is also improved. Kasi with Down syndrome, hindi lang basta physical yung kanilang problems. They also have problems when it comes to their psychological side. Nagkakaroon sila ng mood problems. And before, nangangailangan siya ng gamot na very, very high in dose. And still, kahit na ma-high dose na yung gamot, meron pa rin siyang mga times na hindi talaga ito fully controlled. But when we actually improved our lifestyle, kasama si Bapi sa bahay namin, na hindi na rin kumakain ng kanin for more than 3 years now, going 4 years now, his condition also improved. At alam na alam namin kapag nakakain siya ng bawal, because immediately in that night, hindi na siya makakatulog, and he will have this anxiety at nagkakaroon siya ng maraming mood problems. And this is what we mean by improving the genetic disease. For those na wala pang genetic disease na nag-manifest. Like say for example, merong family history of cancer pero wala pa naman siyang diagnosed cancer. So we can actually improve it by lessening the risk of it being expressed. So we will now tackle on how to influence the epigenetics, how to manipulate yung genes natin by manipulating our epigenetics, and we will manipulate our epigenetics in 5 key steps in improving our lifestyle. Okay, so are you ready? Maraming salamat everybody for those who are watching and for those who are always supporting. And yes, marami ng takot na takot and marami ng sobra-sobra na yung pag-iisip na baka sa kanila na mag-manifest yung kanilang genetic disease in their family. But know na as long as we are alive, meron pa rin pag-asa. And of course, no, you should consult your doctor and your trusted physician or our local physicians in our community if you have specific medical concerns. This video are made to educate and to give awareness that we can do something about it. And when it comes to our health, pagdating sa ating kalusugan, hindi pwedeng mag-depend lang tayo sa gamot dahil may insurance tayo or meron tayong Medicare. No, we can be in control in more ways than one. So I will share with you 5 key steps to improve your genetic diseases or its manifestation, although other factors are involved, like say for example, yung degree or severity ng genetic disease. But know that when you do these 5 key steps, it will either, kung hindi man siya totally gumaling, then it can be subsided yung symptoms, or at least hindi na siya mag-progress or mag-worsen pa. Okay? So there are, according to my mentor, there are 100 ways to skin a cat. Okay? So medyo morbid yan. But the point is, maraming paraan how to go about it. But personally, this is the 5 steps. This is the 5 options that I practice, and also I try to help when it comes to my family, friends, and also my patients. And also the most important ones, the ones who are part of our LCF masterclass, na sobrang nagpapasalamat kami for their support, because their support and them joining in our masterclass, even if it's for their own health, even if it's for their own wellness, but we are grateful because you being a part of our masterclass enable us to do what we do in order to share more knowledge to as many people as possible. So, tama na. That's it. We go with the first step to improve the genetic disease, and that is to eat the right kind of food. So when we say the right kind, iba-iba ito for person, for individuals, kasi iba-iba tayo ng preference. But what we learned so far in our community is sa dinami-dami ng merong experiences sa pagda-diet, sa pagla-lifestyle change, it's only with going low carb, limiting the sugar and starch, where the success rate is very, very high. So, importante na alamin nyo muna which of your food intake yung kailangan i-eliminate. For those na merong mga genetic na conditions, they are actually more health conscious as compared to general public. For those na who have been asking me kung kailan ako nagsimula, bakit ako nagsimula ng low carb, ng lifestyle, ng nutrition, even if my specialty is a little malayo from this. Hindi ako dietitian, hindi ako nutritionist, I'm an ENT specialist. I specialize in facial plastic surgery. But on the side, my heart also speaks for better health, for sustainable kind of healing. And that kind of healing, nakita ko lang when we try to manage our body before going to the hospital. So kung kakayanin natin na mai-improve yung health natin before pa sila mag-manifest, then I think that's the best kind of healing na kakailanganin natin. Prevention. We always hear prevention is better than cure. Pero paano natin ito tinitake in? We just get vaccinations, we just drink vitamins. Actually, no, it can go way before that. And that is on our day-to-day na ginagawa. So, atomic habits, whatever you do in little things, it will add up to bigger things. So, what you actually decide to eat today can actually influence on what will your future health will be. So, when it comes to eating the right kind, number one, of course, na kailangan i-avoid is the processed foods na mga matataas na chemicals and the high in sugar. Alam na natin yan together with high in bad kind of oils. So not oil, not all fats are bad. For the longest time, akala natin lahat ng matataba, lahat ng mamantika ay masama sa katawan. But actually, no. Not all fats are created equal. Hindi magkatumbas yung sunflower oil, yung rapeseed oil, yung canola oil. Hindi sila magkatumbas ng olive oil or coconut oil. These are different. So when it comes to animal fats, chicken oil may not be the best. It's actually better for you if you want animal fats, lard, or tallow, yung taba ng baka o taba ng baboy, or coming from the fats from butter, yung extracted fats from the milk, but without the lactose and without the casein. So you have to know which one is the right for you. So if you've been avoiding processed foods already, hindi na kayo nagso-soft drinks, hindi na kayo nagde-dessert, hindi na kayo kumakain ng mga chichirya, ng mga chips, and yet you still see some problems like pagkakaroon ng allergies, pagkakaroon ng mga skin breakouts, pagkakaroon ng aches and pains, sobrang tagal ng recovery after a stressful event, sobrang tagal ng muscular improvement, ng stamina after an exercise, then maybe you might need to improve your food intake. So if you've already been avoiding the typical junk foods and yet parang hindi pa rin perfect yung health ninyo, then you can look into the other foods that could still be inflammatory kahit pa hindi sila part ng junk food. So these foods are the ones in our caution list. The junk foods are already in our danger list, in our JGC Rojo food list. Kindly add na lang, admins, to the comment section, yung link natin for our printable file. Also, we will try to put this one in our YouTube description later on. So with our JGC Rojo food list, avoid the one in the caution in the danger list. And if it's still not improved the way you want it, hindi mo pa rin masabi that you're already at the top of your health, then maybe you can move on to the caution list. And now you can try to look at the caution list at baka kailangan mo rin yan i-avoid. So the most common foods na kinakain ng karamihan na nasa caution list na hindi nila alam na ito pala ay hindi dapat pang unlimited in amount would be, ano yon dito sa Pilipinas, ano yung pinakausong only rice. So only rice, because rice may be okay, but if you are eating more than 1 cup of rice a day, 2 cups, 3 cups, and unlimited, kahapon ko lang nalaman that one of the persons closest to me ay kumakain pala ng 10 cups of rice before. Hindi ko yun alam. Hindi ko alam na pwedeng-pwede pala yun na makakakain sila sa isang inasal place. You know that inasal place in the Philippines na very famous, na isang inasal lang, isang chicken inasal lang, you are already for just how much? Less than 100 or maybe 120 pesos, then you can already have unlimited rice. So, nakakaubos pala siya ng 10 cups of rice every day. Hindi ko talaga maisip na posible pala yun. And yes, that is the reason why also yung Facebook group natin, when it comes to food na inspirations on low carb, on how to eliminate the primary inflammatory foods coming from sugar and starch, is, anong pangalan sa mga members na natin? It's Life Without Rice. So why Life Without Rice? Because rice, meron niyang emotional attachment for us Filipinos. And if we can actually have a life without rice, kung kaya mo, kung makakaya mo ng isang araw, dalawang araw na mamuhay ng walang kanin, and if you've been very attached to rice for the longest time, then if you can do it, then you can do everything else. Yun yung isa sa mga gustong-gusto ko kasi once you are already able to live with certain things that you thought hindi mo kayang mabuhay without, then you can do so many things. That's also the reason why I actually started with fasting. I didn't started with low carb. I started with fasting because for the longest time, I know I'm very much dependent to food because nature yan eh. Natural para sa atin to be always looking for food, to be always excited about food. And I told myself, if I can live a day or 2 or 3 or 4 days without food at nakaya ko siya, then I know I can do so many things. I am capable of letting go of so many things and I can do things on my own successfully. Kasi nga, yung pinaka-basic need, that is food na kaya kong walain. So that's why I started fasting before, and that's also the reason why when people ask me why I fast, I just joke around that it's for spiritual and philosophical reasons. And yes, it is for health reasons, but generally it's also about my practice of my mental strength. Fasting is not for the mentally weak. And I know that you are mentally strong. That's why you are here. Kung hindi pa ready, you know you can just be ready when you are and when you know you need it. And that is the second part of our steps to improve our genetic disease. So the first one is to eat right, and eating the right kind is mostly generally yung nasa ating safe list in our JGC Rojo food list. And for the second key to improve our genetic is to eat at the right time. Kasi kahit pa okay yung gulay, okay yung beef, okay yung liver, okay yung itlog, pero kung kumain ka ito ng 24 hours ng walang tigil, all day, every day, yung ginagawa mo lang the whole time is nasa harap ka lang ng kainan o di kaya nasa kitchen nagpe-prepare ng kakainin mo, then that is also not right. So you also should eat at the right time. The concept of fasting is very much embedded in our DNA, kaya nga lang nakaligtaan na siya for the longest time ng ating modern society because we were brought up being afraid of feeling hungry. Takot tayong magutom, takot tayo baka mawalan tayo ng pagkain. But now we see that epigenetics is actually going to influence genetic expression if it will experience the same experience na nakasanayan nito, and that is our evolutionary experience. Before we became modern men and women, before we became the modern human that we are now, we were exposed to cycles of fasting. Meaning, hindi araw-araw marami yung pagkain. May mga araw talagang walang makain. That is also the reason why in all religious and philosophical beliefs, lahat yan merong incorporation of fasting. Because fasting, hindi lang siya basta sacrifice lang. It is going to, as what the spiritual leaders, the priests, the nuns, the monks, the all of our the leaders in our world, prehistoric time, and even Jesus, Gandhi, Buddha, all of them fasted at a certain time because it is not just about spiritual cleansing, it is also medical and also physical cleansing. When we fast, we activate the genes for repair. When we fast, we activate the genes na papatay sa mga defective na parts ng ating cells. When we fast, we also activate survival mode. And when we activate survival mode, we increase our growth hormones. We have sharper brain, we have sharper focus, we have improved stamina. Hindi siya nakakamatay. Of course, it's different. If it's already 1 month of fasting, hindi na rin tama yan. So, fasting at the right time, that is also knowing kung kailan ka kakain, will be one of the most important key na kailangan natin ma-practice ulit. And noong unang panahon, during evolution, we fast because we don't have a choice kasi walang pagkain noon. But now we are already bombarded with food and these foods are already readily available anytime. Isang text mo lang, isang click mo lang sa app, meron ang darating na food. So the challenge now is for you to say no to food even if it is there. So that is also the difference between fasting and starvation. Starvation, kung ikaw yung parent at hindi mo pa kapakainin yung bata, that is starvation. And that is brutally wrong. Wala yang kapatawaran because you have to provide. But when it comes to fasting, it's a deliberate decision of the individual na kahit pa may pagkain, siya mismo ay hindi kakain for whatever reasons na gusto niya. Others do a fasting strike. Hindi sila kumakain to show their disgust sa government or kung ano yung kanilang pinaglalaban. They can also do it for spiritual reasons, for cleansing, for their enlightenment. Because when you fast, actually, you become more in tune with yourself. Even your intuition is even improved. As a personal note, I've been fasting for so long, but one of the longest fast that I recently did was for my exam. Kasi hindi ako nakapag-prepare sa aking exam. I was very distracted that time na halos 5% lang yung nabasa ko for what as compared to what I'm supposed to be studying. So 1 week before my exam, and that is the most important exam of my life as a doctor, I didn't have a choice. I know hindi talaga ako papasa kung yun lang yung ipagpapatuloy ko lang yung status ko that time. And I know that the only way, if I only have one chance of passing, and that is through fasting. So I actually took the exam at 6 days of water-only fasting. Hindi ako kumain. So I just did water and also electrolytes. But on the last few days, I took some vitamins to make sure na hindi ako magba-blackout during exam. So that is the most recent longest fast that I did. After that one, I broke my fast. So I completed my 7 days of fasting specifically for that exam. At mabuti na lang at nakapasa naman tayo. And that's why also, even if I didn't pass, I'm sure that's my best hope of passing. So I'm not saying that you will also do it, but I'm just telling you that fasting is so good for our body na kung hindi pa kayo nagpa-fasting, maybe you can already start doing it even just as little as 12 hours. Okay? I think yung pinakamatagal na fast na karamihan is just 10 hours yung pag nagpapalaboratory ka. I also remember that time before this longer fasting, kapag nagpapalaboratory kami sa hospital, I also feel like after 10 hours of fasting, parang I deserve food, kailangan ko nang kumain ng marami. But later, I realized na 10 hours is just too short. So kung 10 hours na yon, if I had my lab exam at 8 in the morning, so 10 in the evening, kumakain pa pala ako. And for me now, looking back, I think tayo na in our family and in my circle, hindi na talaga kami makaka-imagine na kumakain pa that heavy, that much, at that late of an hour. The only time na kumakain kami ng 10 in the evening, 12 midnight was Christmas and New Year siguro. And usually when we do that, we also don't eat during the day. So we also fast during the day and then we start eating late kung meron mga special occasions. So it's knowing when to eat. So the most important part when it comes to food intake as influence in our epigenetics, okay, is to knowing what kind of food to eat and also when will you eat that food. Those two important facets, yun yung na-outline sa ating books na Perfect at Last Weight and Perfect at Last Health. So it's eating, it's knowing what to eat in order to heal. So those two kinds, it's outlined there and also itemized per disease in our LCF masterclass. And moving forward, since we have 5 key steps to improve our genetics, we can think of our physical activity. So physical mobility is very important na kahit pa ayaw natin at pagod tayo sa physical activity, we really have to incorporate it because it is just not natural for our body to be on lying or just sitting position all throughout the day. Standing, Kahit walking, kahit na lang as little as 15 minutes a day, that is already good enough. Kesa naman wala talaga. Physical activity, just like fasting, will also influence genetic expression. It can influence the genes if you are physically active, if you've been eating too much wrong foods, inflammatory foods, plus together with proteins na kasama yung mga inflammation-inducing foods like carbs and bad oils, then if you there's no physical activity, those too much proteins and inflammation can be the perfect recipe sa pamumuo ng cancers and tumors. However, if you are physically active, then those anabolic effect might be converted into producing muscles. So, nadadivert yung effect ng anabolism into the good kinds. So, instead of having more bagong mga bukol, mga mass, then maybe it can be used to regenerate like new hair. So just like for example, I think my sister and I were talking the other day na ngayon yung kanyang mga baby hair, sobrang dami ng baby hairs, and she said it's already expected because at 3 months, about 3 months after giving birth, nag-shed off talaga. Parang grabe yung paglagas ng buhok. And it's also the same thing sa mga naglo-low carb when they first doing low carb. Di ba marami yung nag-hair fall? Usually, it can be prevented. Personally, for me, hindi talaga ako nag-go through ng phase ng grabe na hair fall because I've been eating enough. Okay? Hindi talaga ako kinukulang. When I eat kasi, I really eat. For those of you who have been able to dine with me, na nakakain na together with me, you will see that at my appetite is really big. Yung ka-level ko lang talaga sa appetite is yung mga kapatid kong lalaki. And meron pa nga mga panahon na mas marami pa akong kinakain sa kanila. Especially my brother Alvin na over time, parang lumiliit yung kanyang capacity to eat. But ako, ang laki talaga ng capacity to eat. That's why, yes, wala tayong problema dyan. And also, that is important because you also need to replenish yourself with the right nutrients. And yes, when you have physical activity, it will influence your genes that your metabolism will be geared towards improvement, like growth of new hair, healthier nails, healthier looking skin, and also yung energy, yung stamina, at yung pinaka-importante sa physical activity is your resistance to stress. Okay? And all of you, for those of you who have known me since 2019 maybe or 2020, alam nyo na hindi talaga ako nag-exercise during the first 2 years because just the right food and the right fasting, 80% of your health can already be improved. Ganun po ka-importante yung food intake. But if you want to go 100%, then maybe you might also want to activate physical activity. Kahit pa ang difference when I added physical activity to my routine, hindi lang basta low carb and fasting. For when I was doing low carb and fasting, as long as I avoid the bad foods, I avoid the carbs and sugar and starch, I will no longer have any signs of allergies. Hindi na ako na sinisipon, hindi na ako nagkakaroon ng allergic rhinitis. But every time nakakakain ako ng kakaunting mga nasa caution list, like say for example, if I eat out and then merong mga seed oils na doon, or if I eat nuts, to think nuts are in our safe list, but since I have some degree of hypersensitivity reaction at meron akong leaky gut, when I started doing physical activity, and also we also did a DCR healing protocol. You can look that up also. Meron tayong videos about it if you wish to know more. The dry, clean, and refeeding protocol. It's a 21-day fasting protocol. Now we also, I think this one is outlined in our autoimmune disease masterclass for leaky gut healing. When I did that and I added physical activity, right now I am more resistant to these anti-nutrients, to these phytotoxins. I can accommodate more of these vegetables kasi during that time, if I eat a lot of vegetables, I really feel bloated. Meron akong mga gas, grabe yung gas, and then I also don't feel well. But when I added physical activities, we already see na yung ating resistance to these because these phytonutrients na nasa vegetables are actually stressors. But just like physical activity, it's also a stress in our body and it's a good kind of stress. That's why when others are thriving in carnivore, I know it can be the best kind of way of eating to reset your body's health. But hindi pwedeng, I mean, it would be better if after that resetting period, we can still incorporate some vegetables because if we want to increase our resistance to stress because exposure to vegetables will make our body become more resistant to the phytotoxins that these vegetables inherently have. Yes, these are toxins by its name, but it's a dose dependent na kind of toxin na yung concept niya is what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. So we eat it from time to time to make sure that our body gets the necessary na parang exercise. The same way that physical activity is also making our body stronger. So if you are very busy and you don't have time for physical activity, just do whatever it is that you can do to stop yourself from just sitting the whole day or lying in bed the whole day. Okay? Find an activity that you enjoy, that you find fulfilling, na you are walking or standing or at least moving around. Because that physical activity is already important. Kasi yung isang concept niyan, one book says, if you are not doing anything, if you are always lying down, it will give the signal in your body, in your system, that you are already done, you are already ready to go. So that's why people who don't have physical activity, it will be such a matter of time that they will also go into this mental state na parang they want to give up on life, they feel they have this dark thoughts, and it's because of that physical activity na absent. Because when you are physically active, you are sending a signal to your body and to your brain and to your whole system that you want to live, that you have something to live for, and that you have a reason to go, and you have a reason to be physically, to be mentally sharp, to be active, to be alive. So, moving your body is giving the signal to your body that you are alive and you want to live more, and your body, your genes will just activate those necessary genes for you to act, to really live longer, to really live better, and to optimize your health. Okay? So, so much for physical activity. We now move on to our favorite, which is sleep and rest. So, sleep and relaxation is a very important factor also when it comes to our epigenetics, the ones that will going to influence our genetic expression. So, yung sa aming family, like in us siblings, lima kami. So, Alvin, Kat, and also Andrew, and then Bapi, yung may Down syndrome, and ako. So, kaming dalawa ni Andrew and Kat, kaming dalawa ni Andrew, the younger boy and girl, we are actually taller than Alvin and Kat. And if we think about the difference sa aming, because Bapi is exempted, di ba? Because Bapi has Down syndrome. So their height is really expected to be lower as compared to the average. So yung difference namin, growing up, kami ni Mandru, sobra kaming mahilig matulog. So we actually have longer times to sleeping. We sleep after lunchtime and then lumalabas kami 4, 5 o'clock na para maglaro. So our physical activity is play, but we really sleep. And we are always also late in the morning because we also sleep longer in the morning. So sleep and rest is important, especially for growing children if you want to maximize their height and their growth potential. But of course, physical activity is as important as well. We know people who are very physically active, who are always on the go, who are always very busy, very sobrang achiever. Pero at a very young age, bigla-bigla na lang nagkakaroon ng heart attack, nagkakaroon ng bigla nilang natumba. Triathletes. I know one triathlete, husband of one of our boss before, while in the middle of the race, he actually dropped dead. And when we see yung kanyang physical activity is already very good. He's very physically active and they're also very health conscious, although we don't know if it's low carb kasi wala pa naman low carb that time. But their sleep, their amount of sleep is always compromised because they're also very busy. They're doctors as well. So that one, we can really see how sleep is important because sleep hindi lang siya actually basta pahinga lang sa ating muscles. I always say this, sleep is very essential for repair mechanism. At kapag hindi mo binigyan ng pagkakataon yung katawan mo na magpahinga, then this repair mechanism hindi ma-activate. So yung maling recipe na yon, going back to our genetic expression, 'di ba? Genetic expression is just about recipes being scrambled. Before actually lutuin, chine-check pa 'yan. Meron pa yang a cycle where it is being double check kung tama na nga ba. Kapag hindi ka nag-rest, yung checking period na yon, yung palang quality control, yung in charge sa quality control, hindi yun ma-activate. So, the wrong recipe will be released at yun na yung gagawa and that can pile up. That's why walang makaka-replace sa tulog. Kahit anong vitamins, kahit pa anong healthy na pagkain, kahit pa gaano ka grabe yung pag-exercise mo, your sleep will never be replaced. Only sleep can provide what sleep can provide. So aim for 7 hours to 9 hours, no more than 9 hours of sleep a day. Make it as regular as possible. Pwede kayong gumawa ng inyong sleep hygiene routine and you can also enjoy some rest in between. Kung mahilig kayong mag-nap in the afternoon, you can also do that. Just try to not have a nap right after eating because especially if you are eating high carb, because that is a recipe also of more inflammation in the body because all of your food intake most likely it will be converted into fats and those fats hindi lang siya basta sa ating katawan. The first one to get hit is our liver and we want to maintain our liver health because our liver is the primary organ of metabolism natin. Kapag problemado yung liver natin, everything else can also have a problem. So sleep and rest when you can and I hope you do it at the right time after a good physical activity, after you eat the right kind of food, or you can sleep on a fasted state. It is best to sleep on a fasted state, especially at night. That's why in our masterclass, we really emphasize that before you think that you are already doing it right, make sure that your last meal is at 4 to 6 hours before your bedtime para naman na yung sleep ninyo ay magiging full yung inyong benefits na makukuha dito. And for our last part of the 5 key steps to improve our genetics would be having a positive mindset. So having a positive mindset is equally important to the rest of those 4 items because our brain, our mind is so powerful that it can dictate whatever it wants to dictate sa loob ng ating katawan. Our brain function is just energy. So it is energy that is being converted. If you don't believe me with the power of your brain, try to imagine na meron tayong lemon, na meron kang lemon, tapos hinati mo ito sa gitna, tapos nakita mo, pag open mo, yung juice niya lumalabas, at tapos yung lubos nilagay mo sa kutsara, and then yung kutsara, ininom mo, pure lemon juice, pure calamansi juice. Okay? Can you imagine that? So, lumabas ba yung laway sa inyong bibig? That is just a very simple illustration how your mind is so powerful, how your mind can control your body. So, let's start by thinking positively, thinking of the right things. And when it comes to healing, ito yung ating favorite mantra. And that is to tell yourself that every day, in every beautiful way, I am getting better and better. And para sa mga overthinkers dyan, huwag nang magpaka-stress pa. Kumain ka lang ng tama kung gusto mo nang kumain at huwag kang kumain kung hindi ka pa gutom. And just think that whether I fast or I eat, I just stay healthy and fit along with many other positive mindset, and that is gratitude. Always be grateful. Meron pa rin tayong pasasalamatan kahit pa sa dinami-dami na nangyari, kahit pa sa dinami-daming bagay na gusto nating i-change or i-improve, there is still one thing that we should always be grateful about. So, if you are a pessimist, kung sanay kayo na mag-isip ng negative things parati, it's okay, but merong paraan yan. For every negative thought na papasok sa isipan nyo, try to think of 3 positive thoughts to counter it. So, yung pinaka-basic niyan na hindi kailangan ng anything extravagant or anything fancy would be for you that you are alive, you are happy to be alive, you are happy that you are able to think, you have the right thinking, and also you are happy that you learned this technique. So yung tatlo pa lang yan, tatlong pasasalamatan na yan. And that is already something to be grateful for, along with so many other things that I know you have. Kaya nga lang nakakaligtaan mo lang, like the people around you, your family, your work na kahit pa nakakapang-stress sa'yo, but it's still providing you with the needed stuff for you to live, for you to provide what needs to be provided for your day-to-day needs. So everything, meron tayong pasasalamatan parate. So to recap, this episode is regarding our genetics, and there are 5 key steps to improve our genetics. It is by influencing the genes through epigenetics, and that 5 key steps would be to eat the right kind. So there are 100 ways to skin a cat, and for us, when it comes to eating the right kind, we believe in low carb nutrition, and it may be different from person to person. You can be carnivore, you can be vegan, you can be vegetarian, you can eat Mediterranean, but all of them can actually also be low carb. And you should know when to eating at the right time with incorporation of fasting and inducing some degree of physical activity in any way you can, and rest when the time is right, and above all, trust and believe that everything will be all right by having a positive mindset. So maraming salamat everybody. I'll see you in our next video, and also for those who will join our meet and greet, I will see you. Tagal na rin, no? Open na kasi ngayon. Wala nang alert level 1, na ba? Pwede na yung social gathering. So we are now opening our meet and greet this coming March 27 in Pasig City. Just message these numbers if you wish to be a part. We are closing our registration soon. And for those who wish to be a part of our low carb and fasting masterclass for specific disease or for disease prevention, for health optimization, just message lang po yung ating Facebook page na LCF Masterclass by yours truly, Josephine Grace Rojo MD. Maraming salamat everyone. I'll see you again next time. So remember to always stay low carb so that we all stay safe. Bye!